Welcome into Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am Kyle Madson, and I write about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Joining me right now, Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee, and we're going to talk about the 49ers' 45-29 win over the Arizona Cardinals. But first, let's talk about our friends over at Lamb Chops, the official clothing brand of Candlestick Chronicles. As you can see, Chris is wearing a great Lamb Chops wordmark tee right now. You can get t-shirts, hoodies, shorts, sweatpants. Right now, their fall and winter collection. It's a hoodie, there's some sweatpants, there's a dope-ass t-shirt, and there's the Letterman-style jacket. All very dope, and that's honestly the best quality some clothing can have.
I'm wearing this shirt right now because it's a little chilly outside. Take the dog out, take the trash out. And these shirts, it's a Minnesota brand. These shirts are made for this time of year. They're nice and warm. They're nice and cozy. So shout out to Lamb Chops. Everything they make is good. Shorts, joggers. A lot of it's got zippered pockets. Hoodies. Obviously, the hoodies are some of our favorites. So shout out to our guy Craig and Lamb Chops for sponsoring the pod.
Use promo code Candlestick20 at sglambchops.com for 20% off your order today. And you too can look like the number one seed Minnesota Timberwolves right now, sitting at 19-5 atop the Western Conference. Shout out to the Wolves and the state of Minnesota. Doing it for the people who went down with the football team. That was tough. Tough for our guys out there in Minnesota. All right. sglambchops.com is a website. Promo code Candlestick20 for 20% off your order today. We're also sponsored by Cooperage Brewing. We love Cooperage Brewing. It is our favorite brewery. We like hanging out up there at the brewery in Santa Rosa. We highly encourage you to do the same. There's not only the great beer, but it's great vibes. Indoor, outdoor seating. Bring a dog. They have a great food truck. You can eat some good food, meet some good people, and have some delicious beer, which is priorities 1 and 2, I think.
Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA, of course, is our favorite for obvious reasons. Everything there they make is good, though. You can get you can get hazy pale ales, you can get pale ales, you can get West Coast IPAs, you can get
Oatmeal
wheat
stout.
beers, oatmeal stouts, lagers, pilsners, anything you could possibly want, they have. And it's all top quality, just like the vibes in the brewery, and also top quality being able to get a case of beer or multiple cases of beer shipped directly to you. If you're of age, 21 or up, of course, and in the state of California, you can get Cooperage Brewing delivered right to your door. If you can't get to the brewery or you can't get to one of the many bottle shops that have Cooperage in stock. So check out cooperagebrewing.com and go to the brewery in Santa Rosa. It's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Do all those things. Shout out Cooperage Brewing. And of course, get your Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA. Come on. Be the MV of your tailgate. All right. Let's talk about this 49ers win. You know, I've pushed back pretty hard on the idea that Christian McCaffrey is actually the MVP of the NFL. Because I'm trying to think realistically about this, and I'm thinking of what voters are going to look at and da-da-da. But then games like Sunday happen, and Christian McCaffrey leads the team in rushes with 18, rushing yards with 115, and posts a touchdown on the ground. And then he also leads the team in receptions with 5, receiving yards with 72, and posts a couple of touchdowns through the air. And on days like today, it's really, really hard to push back on the idea that Christian McCaffrey isn't actually the MVP. For me personally.
I think if he stays healthy over the last 3 games of the season, he's going to have well over 2,000 scrimmage yards.
Yeah, he might break Jerry Rice's franchise record for touchdowns.
Yeah, and he's already up to 20 touchdowns. So, yeah, I think there's a case there. I tend to just give it to the quarterback. Like, there were some plays in the game. Like, Christian McCaffrey makes a lot of plays. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it feels like throughout the season, when it's like a gotta have it moment, you're getting more of those moments from the quarterback, Brock Purdy, than you are necessarily from Christian McCaffrey. And that's not to take anything away from what CMC is doing. But when it comes to the MVP discussion, like, I thought like the biggest play, or one of the biggest plays in today's game, was right after Brock Purdy came back in. It was I think it was a 3rd and 9, maybe it was 3rd and long. Brock Purdy breaks the pocket, goes to his left, and floats that pass to George Kittle that he sort of uses one hand as a backboard to corral and then catches, and then they go down and
That was a
score.
sick play.
That to me was kind of, like there are just so many plays throughout the season where you're like, okay, like a Brock Purdy throw was like a defining moment in the game. And obviously McCaffrey's production speaks for itself. It's insane how good he is. But it feels like when anything's in the balance, you tend to rely more on your quarterback to make a play than you do your running back. So that would be my only pushback.
Yeah.
Like my only pushback on his MVP candidacy would just be like, if you watch the 49ers every play like we do, like I think they're just those moments where like, okay, the game's in the balance or they need a big play offensively. It's the quarterback who's making it in those very specific moments, while McCaffrey's just sort of the guy who you just kind of count on down in and down out to keep things moving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. It's just when he plays like he did today and he does everything on the ground and he's making plays in the air and he's putting up 3 touchdowns. It's like, okay, like you get where it comes up. You get why you get it's very front and center why he's in the conversation. So yeah, just another really good offensive game all around. But honestly, it went a little bit like I thought it would. I thought it would be a little bit more shootouty than the Niners' typical kind of blowout of worse opponents. And sure enough, they were sitting there at halftime up 21-13 in a game that felt closer than that score. And they were a Ronnie Bell elbow away from being 21-20 at the half. So I never felt like they were going to lose, but it definitely had the tenor that I thought it would, especially with what Arizona did on the ground. Any Arizona ball carrier who carried it more than once averaged more than 6 yards per carry, which is bananas. It was more apparent than I thought it would be. Yeah, 30 carries for 234 yards and a couple of touchdowns for Arizona. It was just more apparent than I thought it would be that the Niners were missing their 2 starting defensive tackles.
Yeah, it just felt like there was more space around the line of scrimmage and in the trenches than there normally would be, right? And that makes it a little bit more difficult on the linebackers when the running backs have more space to operate. The Niners tackling was sloppy throughout.
Really
I feel
bad.
like at every level, even Fred Warner, Fred Warner felt like he missed a handful of tackles. Nick Bosa missed a few tackles. It was just, I don't know what you prescribe the issue when it comes to, or how you prescribe the issue when it comes to dealing with missed tackles. Like you're not practicing tackling during the week. Obviously it's positioning and fundamentals are a focus of just like playing football. But I don't know like what you do to address missed tackles aside from just, locking in, right? Like just lock in and be more honed in on your fundamentals. But that was to me probably the thing that stood out from the defensive side and why I was glaring. It just never felt like Arizona had the weapons today. They could do what they wanted on the ground for sure, but with the way, particularly after Charvarius Ward had the pick 6, and Charvarius Ward was excellent again. I didn't think he was going to play today after sitting out basically the entirety of last week's game against Seattle with the groin injury, but he made that interception and he was flying. Our guy Nick Wagner tweeted that he was going, I think it was upwards almost 21 miles an hour, just under, and it was the 3rd fastest time by a 49ers ball carrier this season, which is crazy to think about given the guys they have on offense.
It feels so rare that usually a pick 6 is like they jumped a flat route or they had a sick return where they got a couple of blocks and had a caravan down the sideline. It feels so rare that you see a seam route jumped like that and then have the guy go untouched to the end zone. That just felt like a really bizarre pick 6 to me. And it was because he was moving like that and nobody could catch him. Like I didn't know Charvarius Ward had it like that in the straight line speed department.
Yeah, me neither. Like I knew he could hang with some of the big physical receivers. I didn't have him as a fast guy. And maybe it's just different when like you have the adrenaline of the ball in your hands as a defensive player knowing that you have a chance to score.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could definitely move. And Kyle Shanahan said after the game, like, he was asked about it, and he was like, "No, he could definitely run. Like Travarius or Mooney can run. He's he can move a little bit." So yeah, defensively, like it wasn't a good game. But my big takeaway from the game overall was like this is kind of what elite teams do. Like
Yep.
week in and week out, elite teams can win games that don't have, that they don't have their fastball. They like defense wasn't good, so the offense picks them up, or if the offense is bad, then the defense picks them up. Complementary football, it's part of the formula, Kyle. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Well, complementary football, I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe that was one of your keys to the game.
Yeah, and all 4 quarters.
Yeah, and wanting it.
And wanting it more.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, remember like 2019, right? It was the Saints game where it was, the Niners couldn't stop anybody, and Drew Brees was lighting them up. And then it just took one stop from Nick Bosa, and that sort of changed the tenor of the game. And this game wasn't anything like that because the Cardinals aren't anything like the Saints. But the point is that we look at that 2019 defense as really elite, right? Like that carried the Niners team to the Super Bowl. Well, that week in New Orleans, the defense just didn't have it. And then it was Jimmy Garoppolo and the offense that picked everybody up. For the 49ers to get to where they want to go, they're going to have to win games that don't always follow the formula of jump out ahead, go up by a touchdown or 2, lap the team at, score just before the half, get the ball after halftime, and then just, throttle them defensively. Like there's going to be a back and forth game at some point, potentially even in the playoffs, or a game where the offense just can't do anything. Like, the Green Bay playoff game where the special teams touchdown ends up being the difference, right? Like those types of wins and being able to win different ways is ultimately what's going to define the success of this 49ers season, in my opinion, right? Like I just, the playoffs are going to be different unless the 49ers, there's a chance the 49ers are so good that their formula of getting ahead and staying ahead and just like keep pouring on points and keep playing well defensively is just going to work the whole way. They might be that good.
Right.
But the odds and what history says is just like it's going to get hard in the playoffs. You're going to play a weird game. Right. You're going to be like what the 49ers experienced in the NFC Championship game in LA, like being up, then being down and having to come back. And then, Kansas City Super Bowl, obviously being up, being down, having to come back. They haven't had to do that much this year. And so, but when you have wins like this where defense isn't playing well and it's like, all right, well, the offense is just going to score 45. Like that's ultimately a good sign. And so, yeah, Arizona stinks. Like they're very much, in the early stages of a rebuild. They have a first-year coach. We don't know what's going to happen with Kyler Murray long term. So all that aside, like this had the classic makings of a trap game. Arizona was coming off a bye. And we've seen how the 49ers have played against opponents who were coming off byes. I thought it would be a trickier game because of that, but it wasn't really. But ultimately, like just the fact they could win sort of outside their formula was the big takeaway for me. And obviously, bigger picture, winning the NFC West is, one of the boxes you want to check on the season, right? It's not, but they can be no lower than the 3 seed now, which is a positive for them. But now, like, it's going to get tough Monday night against, I don't have the Baltimore Jacksonville game on right now, but it's going to be tough against Baltimore, and we'll see how the 49ers stack up against, arguably the best team in the AFC. But for me, it's just, this was like a balanced, like you kind of have to win ugly when the defense isn't playing well sometimes. And that's what they did. And ultimately that's a positive.
So who would you say, if the 49ers are the best team in football right now, who's the second best team? I want to make a point off a point you made.
Like the second best team from like a resume standpoint, or a team
who you're making power rankings. Who's number 2? Is it Baltimore?
Probably. I would need to. I'm just gonna watch that Buffalo Dallas.
Okay,
game
let me rephrase it. Hang on. If you were throwing teams in a bucket as the other top teams in the league, what's a team that you would throw in there? I'm trying.
A team, Baltimore,
Buffalo. Great. Okay, I'm just grabbing Baltimore's schedule here because you pointed out like this is what good teams do, or what the elite teams do, and sometimes you're gonna struggle weirdly, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm looking at this Baltimore schedule, and they have like a 20-10 win over the Chargers. Like that's not that great of a win, all things considered. They lose to the Browns.
Everybody out.
They lose it right. They lose to the Browns, who had Deshaun Watson at the time and he was hurt, but the Ravens were up like 17-0 in that game. They have a 7-point win over the Cardinals. They have an 8-point win over the Titans. They lost to the Steelers. They lost to the Colts. They had a 3-point win over the Bengals when Joe Burrow couldn't move on his calf. Like they beat the Rams by 6 last week in OT. So it is, or no, that game did not wind up going to OT, did it? Did that game?
Which one?
Yeah, that one went to OT. Doesn't matter. Anyways, just to your point, I feel like the Niners don't have a game like that outside of their 3-game losing streak, where it's like, oh boy, they just snuck out of there with that one. Or man, they really struggled with that bad team. Like they're just kind of steamrolling everybody.
The only times that they've struggled, only time that they've struggled was when they haven't had Trent and Debo at the same time.
Right. No, during that 3-game losing streak. And outside of that, the fact that, here's the point I'm making. It take 10 years to get there. The fact that they've played 14 NFL games now, and outside of the 3 that they've lost, have not had a weird, like, ooh, that was kind of an ugly win. Like, what the hell? Like, it's nice to get the W, but ugh. That they've not done that yet makes me think that, hey, maybe the just steamroll everybody they play is just going to be a thing. And maybe, like you said, maybe the playoffs are always weird. You get one game and people, pucker up, or they shine under the lights, and, whatever. Coaches are pulling out all the stops. I get it. But man, I've kind of just run out of things to say when they just kind of kick a team's ass.
Well, the difference between like being a team that just steamrolls everybody, and a team that will occasionally have those sort of ugly wins like you're talking about, is the quarterback play.
Yeah.
It's the fact that Brock Purdy, it seems like every week, is throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. And like he had 16-25 for 242 yards. That's not even including the 2 long passes to Deebo Samuel that I thought were good, or Brandon Ayuk, that I thought were good throws. The first one, I think it was on the first drive. It hit Ayuk in the chest. It's like 40 yards downfield.
But the defender just got a hand on it. Yeah.
And then there was the other one where in the second half where Ayuk was past the defense. It looked like it would have been a walk-in touchdown. And in my opinion, it looked like he stumbled on his route. And had he been full speed instead of stumbling, he would have walked into the end zone. That's, 2 plays, say 60 yards. He's at like 300 yards potentially in 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think that one, just on that second Ayuk one, I thought I saw the stumble, but I thought he stumbled because Purdy left it too far to the sideline. But it doesn't matter. Your point stands.
So, I mean, either way, it was another super efficient Brock game, and maybe this plays into the Brock Purdy MVP conversation that we continue to have. But the difference between, like, I talked a lot about it before the Eagles game. I was like, the Niners have only sort of won games in this one formula, and we haven't seen the Eagles have won all sorts of games in all these different ways. You know what? Maybe Brock Purdy just elevates the 49ers to the point where, like, they don't have to win in all these other ridiculous ways. They don't have to come back from halftime every week because they're just so damn good with Brock Purdy at quarterback. That just might be it. Like it might not be a thing where they're like punching above their weight and like someone's going to hit them in the mouth in the playoffs and they're going to like stumble and struggle to react. They might just be that much better than everybody. And since the bye week and their 3-game losing streak, they're beating everybody by double digits. And none of these games are close, whether it's a good team or a bad team. And they're just kind of handling business and rolling. And the way the Cowboys played today in Buffalo, the way we've seen the Eagles play the last few weeks, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles on Monday night and if Jalen Hurts is going to play in Seattle. Eagles could lose. The Niners could, illness. Yeah, the Niners could be a game clear of those teams that they have the tiebreaker on, which essentially means they're 2 games up on both the Cowboys and Eagles.
With 3 games to go.
They might just be good enough to just roll through these teams. If they stay healthy, like it might not matter that they haven't had to come back from a fourth quarter deficit. They might just be so good on offense that they're just gonna roll through these teams and look like peak Alabama against, a 24th ranked Florida team. Right? Like that just might be what it looks like in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that wouldn't. So here's all of this needs to be couched, right? In weird stuff happens in the playoffs. Anybody can beat anybody in the NFL, and injuries happen, and all that. We get it. But for me, in years past, I've gone into even the 2019 Super Bowl. I thought the Niners were the best team in the league. But I also knew that, like, man, hey, do you love Jimmy Garoppolo in a big spot? Like, I don't know. And sure enough, that's kind of what happened. 2020, they were all hurt. 21, same deal. It was like, yeah, if everything goes right and they don't need Jimmy to bring them back, then they're as good as anyone. And they got punched in the mouth at the end of that game, and Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't bring them back. And then in 22, it was, Purdy ended up getting hurt, but it was like, man, what kind of rookie quarterback really win the NFC title game? It was just a question. This year, I don't, if they're healthy, which you can say for any team, so I just kind of leave that out, but I don't know the realistic picture that I'm drawing to them losing.
It certainly,
I don't.
It seems like they're not just going to get outplayed at full strength.
Yeah, right. That's kind of what I'm saying. And maybe weird things happen in football games. Maybe they lose in the divisional round. I don't know. I mean, it could happen. But if they're playing like a B+ game, I don't know who's beating them. And I'm trying. Like I try and poke holes in everything, and I don't. If they're missing their 2 starting defensive tackles, then yeah, sure, they'll have a hard time stopping the run.
Right.
You got but that goes for any team.
So like with the Niners, when Jimmy Garoppolo was our quarterback, it felt fragile, or at least a lot more fragile than this feels, because it was always, like you said, it was always like, if you have the most ideal circumstances for Jimmy Garoppolo, you can win a Super Bowl. Whereas I don't think we're saying that about Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy is like a playmaking quarterback in addition to somebody who can run the system and distribute the ball on time to the right guys who are open. Like Brock Purdy does both things. Like we see a lot of quarterbacks who make plays outside of the structure of the offense, like Lamar Jackson or even Russell Wilson for years. Really, really good at scrambling around and making big plays and deep throws and all of that. But they weren't very good in the structure of the offense, like the scripted stuff. Right. Brock Purdy's really good in both. And I think people lose that when they watch him or talk about him in terms of like the hierarchy of where he is against other quarterbacks. But the reason why this 49ers team feels more inevitable than those Jimmy Garoppolo teams is because Brock Purdy can make plays. Brock Purdy can get outside the pocket and find Christian McCaffrey, who's wide open, and not overthrow or miss that throw, or not severely underthrow it to the point where Christian McCaffrey has to like come back, allowing the defense to come make that tackle. Right. So it's like Brock Purdy has raised the ceiling of this team to the point where it doesn't feel like we talk about it in the same way of that 2019 team, where it was like, yeah, you can be at a severe disadvantage when it came to the quarterback position. And you could win if everything went perfectly, if your defense was nails and if your running game was going and all that. The way Brock Purdy plays, and this is just like an eye test thing. This is not a numbers thing. It's just like the way he makes plays and the way he runs the offense and can make plays outside of structure in tandem. It's just a completely different feeling watching this Niners team, and a feeling that like, man, they might just be like, a lot of NFL teams feel like they're here, right? Like close, good NFL teams. The Niners feel like they're up here because of what Brock Purdy can do from an efficiency standpoint, both because Kyle Shanahan's really good at scheming guys open, and he has really good playmakers, obviously. But when the initial play that's drawn, it doesn't work. The fact that Brock Purdy can escape and make throws down the field, it just completely changes the ceiling of this offense. And the fact that he can attack, he can throw deep balls. He can throw back shoulder touchdowns to Deebo Samuel. Like he's making throws that Jimmy Garoppolo never could. And it changes the way we feel about this 49ers team, because now it's like, okay, you don't talk about it like they need optimal circumstances to make up for their poor quarterback play, because they're getting really, really good quarterback play.
With Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback? This is not a drag Jimmy Garoppolo session. This is just their ceiling with Jimmy Garoppolo versus their ceiling with Brock Purdy.
Jimmy Garoppolo is selling Travis Matthews clothes as a backup quarterback. He's living a very charmed life.
He's doing great.
I feel fine for him.
He's doing great, and he won a lot of football games for the 49ers. Shout out. But
he's made lots of money.
Raise the banner. So the thing with Jimmy, and now we've gone off the rails, and I forgot what I was going to say exactly. But it was something along the lines of, with Jimmy Garoppolo, there was a defined way to defend the 49ers. And it was
Charvarius Ward said it in Eric Armstead's podcast. I don't know if you saw that clip.
He was like, I did. Yeah, I wrote about it at NinersWire.com.
He played for the Chiefs, and he was like, our game plan was to put the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands and make Jimmy beat us.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Then he's like, I don't know why you guys stopped running in the fourth quarter. I went back and looked because I didn't feel like that was the case. It definitely was. Yeah. It was tough. Anyways, don't want to relitigate all that. But it was like, there was like a, hey, this is how you can defend them. And it's just take away these short to intermediate throws in the middle of the field, and he's going to give you 2 picks, and you're just going to be able to take those to the bank.
And meanwhile, go ahead. Sorry. And
you don't have that opportunity with Purdy. There are some times, for sure. Like, there are times, I think, where he still locks in on Deebo Samuel. The Niners' second drive today, that first throw, that was going to throw it to Deebo on this in-breaking route, no matter what, even though the DB is right there, and nearly came up with a pick. Like, those throws are still there. They're just fewer. And when the play breaks down, it's, hey, he's not happy feet and throwing the ball behind himself. He is escaping and flipping it out to Kyle Juszczyk or finding Brandon Ayuk deep down the field. There's just a more explosive element that I think forces defenses to defend more grass than they used to need to defend.
And this is, I think, given that Tyreek Hill didn't play today, and given that Dak Prescott, again, I haven't watched the game, but given the way his numbers were, I think he averaged fewer than 4 yards per attempt in a blowout loss to the Bills, which the Cowboys really needed that game, right? When it comes to the MVP discussion, for me, I think it's Brock, and I'm sure it's fair to call me biased since I host a 49ers podcast, but I think it's Brock. And the reason is, when you look at the most valuable thing in the NFL right now, it's the 49ers offense and just how it's moving, right? Like, the thing that impacts winning the most for the best team in the NFL right now is the 49ers offense, and the fact that Brock Purdy has elevated it beyond what you had with Jimmy Garoppolo to now it feels like there's no real answer to defending it, right? Like, it doesn't feel like if you overload on McCaffrey, then Debo's going to burn you. If you overload on Ayuk, they have too many weapons. They have such a good scheme. They have a quarterback who's playing at a really high level. So to me, that's why it's Brock, because it's a way to reward everything that's happening, because there's just no way you can have a team this dominant that's the number 1 seed in the NFC, presumably the best team in the NFL during the regular season, and not reward the 49ers somehow. And if you don't want to give Brock Purdy MVP, and I think I've said this before, and I've seen it said elsewhere, then Kyle Shanahan has to be coach of the year.
I agree.
There's just no, so it has to be one of those things, if not both. But for me, the point I want to make, and I tweeted about this, is that I think a lot of people conflate the MVP award with a scouting conversation. The MVP award is not who would you take if every single player in the league was available in a draft. It's a narrative award. It's just who is the guy who's most important this season in terms of the bigger picture that is the NFL and what the hierarchy of the league looks like. And given that Brock Purdy's elevating this 49ers offense to seemingly unstoppable, and all of the numbers reflect that, and all of the numbers, if you go back in history and look at what quarterbacks who put up these type of numbers do, they win MVPs. So if you want to say Brock Purdy does more because he has more, then that's absolutely fine, but that doesn't disqualify him. And if you did a draft with all of the NFL players and you had 1 pick, hell no, I'm not taking Brock Purdy first. But that's not what this conversation is. And I think a lot of people think it is that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It's not saying who's the best quarterback, who's the most talented quarterback. It's who is the most valuable player in the league, who is telling the story of who is most important to winning in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fact that the 49ers offense just is at a completely different level than it used to be. And they just dominate all of these teams that they play, including some of the best teams in the league who appear to be their chief competition.
I don't want to do more on the MVP stuff because, like you said, it's so narrative based, and that I agree with everything you said. The other thing is on this whole shit, everybody's overthinking it. I think there are so many people overthinking what voters are realistically going to look at. If the 49ers are the number 1 seed and they have a quarterback who threw for 4,600 yards and 37 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and he averaged 9.8 yards per attempt, that's going to be your MVP. Because not that many people are looking past the numbers.
Right.
Like, it's not that goddamn hard. It's not.
Yeah.
So, is it going to... It's stupid. Not even the MVP of his team. Okay. Sure, man. Whatever. Hey, real quick, just side note, having nothing to do with this. The juxtaposition of Sam Darnold's throws versus Brock Purdy's was really funny to me. Darnold can move it, bro.
So I kind of think like Brock Purdy obviously has maybe an average arm. Like when it comes to
it's adequate. It does not.
It's
it doesn't.
Adequate.
It's not going to make him fail.
The fact that he does not throw 95-mile-an-hour fastballs all the time, I feel like he throws very catchable passes.
Yes.
And like, anecdotally, how often do his passes wobble? It feels like every throw is a tight spiral.
Almost never. More of a Cupid shuffle group.
Sure. But the point is, like, because Brock Purdy's he doesn't have a rocket arm, I feel like his passes are just very easy to catch.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's a coincidence that George Kittle dropped that one from Sam Darnold. That has some cheese on it.
It looked like 40% harder than every single pass he's got from Brock Purdy this year.
Sizzle on it.
Arnold is coming in with some adrenaline, man.
And then the audacity to throw that one back across the field after rolling left is like, bro, what are we doing? I gotta respect it.
Darnold was like, he ran onto the field in that game and had to be thinking like, am I going to be starting playoff games?
Dude, 1,000%.
Is this the first snap of me like starting?
Where am I
starting the rest of the way and going to the NFC Championship? Like, am I going to have to win us a Super Bowl?
Where am I going to spend my $280 million next offseason? No, it was definitely like this is my time. It's Sam Darnold time, baby. Like, we're letting this thing rip. That thing, man, good for him. But no, seriously, when Purdy went down the way he went down, first of all, he's just laying there, and the way his arm was just kind of hanging at his side, I don't know if you noticed that while he was on the ground, and the way he was grabbing up at his arm, it's like, that looks like a collarbone. Like that, there's no way that's good. And then you see the hit, and you go, okay, it's probably like, it's probably not a collarbone, but man, it's second concussion for him this year.
Yeah, I thought it was a head injury.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they evaluate him at some point. Although unless he has symptoms, I don't think they do that. But yeah, I just glad it was not a concussion for him.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was kind of wild that the Christian McCaffrey knee thing happened at the same time.
Yeah, so Terrence in the YouTube chat, and again, if you want to watch the show live on YouTube, youtube.com/at Candlestick Chronicles podcast, or just search Candlestick Chronicles on YouTube and we pop right up. Please subscribe to the channel if you do not. Hit that little notification bell so you get notified when we go live. And please hit thumbs up on the video. Again, if you're in here right now, we'd really appreciate it if you smash that thumbs up. That would be super, super dope. All right. Yeah, Terrence in our YouTube chat brought up the injury scares today. You had McCaffrey leaving with the knee thing, and he just got that taped up, and he came back in. Nick Bosa got rolled up on because Randy Gregory just threw a guy to the ground after the play,
He
right
said
into
it after
the
the
back of
game.
Nick Bosa's legs.
It was his foot.
Oh, it was his foot.
But
okay.
His foot was fine. I think he missed one play.
Yeah, he came back pretty shortly after. But yeah, scary moment there. The Brock Purdy thing was a scary moment there. It's like, man, this is one of those just get out of here alive type of games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Diamador Lenore has a rib injury. He looked like he was in a decent amount of pain. Kyle Shanahan said he got stepped on afterwards. So we'll see. I'm told he'll have an MRI on Monday, most likely, and we'll see the severity of that. I thought Lenore had a really good game.
Yeah, Diamador Lenore was really good.
He's been coming on since he's like gotten a chance to get more comfortable in that nickel role. I think he's been really good. Just
me too.
Him and Charvarius Ward have both like Charvarius Ward. I mean, I think he's playing at an all-pro level, and I think
excellent.
The Thanksgiving game against Seattle sort of showcase that. Like sometimes for if you're not like a regular all-pro guy or Pro Bowl guy who's in that discussion, first round pick. You need those type of high-profile games where you do what he did against DK Metcalf, and like, but. You know, the numbers, he leads the NFL in pass breakups. He had 2 interceptions today. He scored his first career touchdown. Like, he's on, obviously, a really good defense. It seems to me like this is headed to, at minimum, a Pro Bowl berth, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was first or second team All-Pro.
Yeah, me neither. He's been really good. Ambry Thomas has been a revelation on the opposite side.
Yeah. He's not at the other guy's level, but I think Lenore has been one of the most pleasant surprises on the team.
Yeah. Like not playable. And all of a sudden he's this starting caliber corner.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of nuts. It's just not the secondary just for me is no longer an issue to the point that when people go, why won't the 49ers win the Super Bowl? You're going, well, that secondary is like, ugh. Like the secondary is not very good. They just have an awesome pass rush. Whereas now it's like, no, man, they have probably, I've not counted this, and I would not even be able to go back and figure this out. But it feels like this year they have more coverage sacks or sacks that feel like coverage sacks than ever before.
It was kind of wild.
A lot of QBs just hanging out in the pocket for a long ass time before they get taken out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was pretty clear what the 49ers were missing from a run defense perspective today without Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave. But it was still kind of wild when like you look out there like on third down, they're missing 2 of their most highly paid defensive linemen, and it's still Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Randy Gregory, and Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of like highly drafted, super talented players.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, they're missing 2 of their starting defensive tackles, and they still have like, say what you would, like Javon Kinlaw is still like, he hasn't been super productive, and he had flashes where, I mean, Kinlaw is a roller coaster. If you watch him snap in and snap out, he's like, he'll have a really good rep and then he'll be on his back, and really good rep and be on his back. It's just like, but point is, he was still like what, the 17th overall pick in his draft, something like that. He was picked in the teens, and he's still a super talented, big, imposing
13th,
dude. 13th,
14th. Did they trade for 13 and trade back to 14, or trade for 12 and move back to 13?
I forget. Point being is that even without those guys, they still have a lot of horses. A lot of like
he's a lottery pick
lineman. Yeah.
14th overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something Luis in our chat brings us up. Like, the tackling was so bad as we get away from things that were good in this game. There were a couple of the 49-yard touchdown run had no business being a touchdown. It was not great.
No, and
James Conner had a couple of runs where he had a bunch of yards after contact.
It was the most rushing yards the Niners have given up since 2017.
Oof. Yeah, 14 for 86, 4 for 64, 6 for 49, 3 for 27. Like, good Lord, man.
And they still have
7.8 yards per carry.
They still have a really long streak. I think it goes back at least a year or two of not allowing a 100-yard rusher. I thought that was going to get broken today for sure. But then DeMercado broke a 49-yarder and James Conner didn't get the chance.
Maybe that was why they let DeMercado score.
Probably. Keep that streak intact.
Chess, not checkers, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, let him score this touchdown. I did like that Kyle Shanahan pulled his starters as early as he did.
Yeah.
When I looked up with, like, what was it, 8 minutes to go, and it's Sam Darnold and Jalen Moore's in the game for Trent Williams, and Deebo Samuel's not on the field, and Christian McCaffrey's not on the field. It's like, hey, look at that. They did it. They managed to pull some starters. I'm proud of them.
Yeah, and they get a little bit of an advantage going into next week in that. Well, they will get the extra day because they play on Monday, but so does Baltimore. But Baltimore has a night game tonight, and then flies back, and then has to fly out.
They have a night road game tonight.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So those road games, those are tough. Like legitimately, like they're not going to get back to Baltimore until like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then it's like you kind of lose your Monday just kind of from recovery. And it's like I've been on some of those trips. I'll never forget like the 2018 Monday night Green Bay game. I legitimately, because like I had to drive back, and I mean I was flying commercial from Green Bay, but I felt like affected.
Flex.
I felt like exhausted for like the entire week coming back after that game.
Damn. And you didn't have to play football.
And I didn't have to play football.
So
I do think the travel stuff matters.
Are football players underpaid? Fire off that.
Some of them.
Brock Purdy's underpaid. I'll tell you that much. Rory, actually, this dovetails nicely with Rory's question here. Rory in the YouTube chat asked, Brock Purdy has 1 more guaranteed cost control year, right? It's 2 more. He has...
But he can get extended after 3, so after next year.
So after next year, right, he can get extended. But he is under contract through 2025.
If Brock Purdy doesn't have a new deal before his 4th season, I'm willing to bet he's not going to show up to training camp.
Yeah.
That would be insane. To be an MVP candidate making $826,000.
What's the if he wins the MVP, what's that thing called where there's like performance-based pay from the NFL, where there's like a pool of money? Yeah. Just give it all to him. Just give it all to him.
He might get it. I mean, if without looking, I feel very comfortable saying Brock Purdy is one of, if not the biggest bargains in NFL history.
Yeah. If they win, yeah. Like even more than Tom Brady.
Because like Trey Lance's contract, if Trey Lance was doing this, it would feel like a bargain, and he would be making $8 to $9 million a year.
Well, the quarterback,
and Purdy's making $826,000.
The quarterback rookie deal thing is like the thing, right? It is get a quarterback on a rookie deal, and the Niners have the lowest rookie deal you can have a quarterback on. Unless they're undrafted.
I think you could have the
lowest deal you can have a drafted quarterback on. Like that's peak. That's peaking as a team. Yeah.
Like anyway. Trey Lance for a while was still like one of the 49ers like 20 highest paid guys, even though it was like quote unquote a boon to have a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on his rookie contract starting. Right. Brock Purdy makes 10% that.
It's crazy. It's nuts, dude.
That'll be one of the most interesting conversations that is going to happen for a long, long time going into that season. Is like, does everyone feel comfortable with paying Brock Purdy $50 million a year?
And that's
Or
where
does Kyle Shanahan go back to the well and try to?
we're going to do this a million times, but why not? And that's where the whole discussion of what does Brock Purdy look like in a league average offense. Now that's where that's relevant. Is that um is that the like I don't that it's not it doesn't factor in what would he look like in a league average offense doesn't factor into the MVP conversation for me. But
Not at all.
in the are you paying Brock Purdy conversation where okay, now you have to project out okay over the next 5 years. Christian McCaffrey's going to be gone, Deebo Samuel's going to be gone. Maybe Brandon Ayuk's still around, but George Kittle's going to be gone. What does he look like then? Trent Williams is going to be gone. What does he look like then? Is he then elevating this roster that is not full of superstars, assuming they're not still full of superstars in 4 years? Like that's where that now matters to me. But I mean, they don't have to cross that bridge for another year and a half. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. But
yeah.
I think he's going to be around for a long time.
I do too.
I just think there are going to be times when like they're going to have to lose some players and obviously be less active in free agency. Like they won't be able to sign somebody like Javon Hargrave. Like as loaded as the Niners were, it was still wild in free agency to be like, oh yeah, the Niners got the best defensive lineman available in free agency.
Right.
And then traded for Randy Gregory and then traded for Chase Young. Like at some point you're not going to be able to do those things when you have a quarterback making $50 million.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But regardless, I don't see any way that, like, assuming Brock Purdy stays healthy and continues playing at this level, I don't see any way where they're like, okay, thanks for the 2 years. We're going to draft somebody else and trade you for 4 first-round picks.
Right.
That's
I
don't
think
that's not going to happen. Yeah.
No. Kyle Shanahan really likes Brock Purdy. And that matters. That matters a lot here. Shout out to Darrell Luter and Robert Beal, who made their defensive debuts today. Robert Beal made his debut, period. Darrell Luter had played in 3 games. He hadn't played on defense yet, but he played in defense today. Sorry, I thought we were done with the Purdy thing. Keep going.
No, I thought it was notable that Kyle Shanahan said post-game that Brock Purdy makes plays, is like a playmaking quarterback at the highest level he's had in his time in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true.
Anytime Jimmy Garoppolo tried to make a play outside of the structure of the offense, you were like, oh, this is going to end badly.
Like, oh, God.
Most of the time it did.
Yeah.
Like, throw it away. Oh, pick to a linebacker.
Right. Yeah. Or, yeah. Anyways. Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy notion. Like Matt Ryan was incredible in 2016, but it wasn't a lot of off script, out of structure stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So we'll have plenty of more time to talk about the MVP stuff. I just think it's when people think when you say MVP, they're like, oh, I'd take this guy over that guy. It's like that's not what the award is.
Right.
So
if the award is who goes first in a draft, then Patrick Mahomes is just the MVP every year.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways. It's why LeBron James doesn't have 8 MVPs.
Right, and it's why Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double that one year, and everyone went, holy crap, triple-double average, got to give it to him. And then the next year he did it, and everyone's like, okay, I'm over it. It wasn't the story of the league that year.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Anyways.
We have Baltimore up 10-0 at the 8-minute mark in the third quarter.
Sounds like it's a bummer we're missing this one. A lot of just red hot AFC action.
I like good defensive football.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that Niners Cowboys playoff game last year where both defenses were like playing at a really high level felt like a real fun, like intense playoff game.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is that or if yeah, no, Trevor Lawrence 19 of 26, 171 yards. Lamar's got a pick and a TD. Blake Hance just reported as eligible according to NFL Jesus, 49ers legend. And now it's 10-6 because Justin Herbert just threw a touchdown.
Rory in the chat asks if Brock Purdy signs a deal after year 3, he gets a signing bonus right away, but the cap hit doesn't kick in until after year 4. He's not just going to be making less than $1 million as an MVP and Super Bowl champ. There are no hard and fast rules about the structure and what his
as we know.
As we know, as like people who really evaluate the structure of contracts, there's no hard and fast rule on when that money hits the books. It's just all based on how it's set up. So it can be a backloaded contract to where he's basically on the same cap number that his existing contract's on. And then typically how that goes is the contract gets more expensive. So it's a backloaded deal as time goes on. Or he gets all the money up front and then he's really expensive for 1 year and cheaper as time goes on. And then what teams do often is give void years that essentially allow you to spread out the signing bonuses over more years to shrink cap numbers in any given year, right? So you'll go to a site like Spotrac or Over the Cap and you'll see like, oh, this guy's signed for 8 years, but it's like a 6-year contract.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years with a bunch of void years on the back of it.
Right.
And they just use those void years to spread out the signing bonuses.
Right.
But the more you do that, the more when that guy is eventually not on your team and you are in one of those void years, you have a bunch of dead money going to that guy. So it's complicated, but I'm sure there will be ways to do it. If there's a team that I think would create a big contract that is malleable, I think it would be the 49ers. And I do think there's an element of Brock Purdy being like every time you bring up the MVP conversation to him, he'll be like, I'm on a really good team. I have really good teammates. I have really good coaches. I don't think he'd be a dude.
That Christian McCaffrey would be his MVP pick.
Yeah.
Shocking development that he would say such a thing.
There is no content. I love everyone who makes NFL content. The teammate praises teammate content, 99% of it, great. Teammate has teammates back. Teammate says great.
Opposing coach praises opposing team player. Like,
right.
Yeah. Tell me when opposing coach is like, we're targeting 55 because that guy sucks. Tell me that. That's great. I'm in.
Right. But anyway, back to my point. It's that I think Brock Purdy has enough self-awareness to be like, yeah, I'm probably not going to ask for $70 million a year just because I'm quarterbacking like a really great team. Like I'll probably be fine with like 50 or 40 so we can, continue paying some of these guys that make me look good.
Yeah. Can we talk about Philly, Seattle real quick?
Sure.
It's a big game. I'm wondering if 49ers fans are emotionally prepared to root for the Seahawks.
I think football fans are petty. Like they're fickle enough. Like if you were to ask me who I think 49ers fans dislike more right now, I would say the Eagles are like very clearly above the Seahawks.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's like, it is a layup that the Seahawks winning is better for the 49ers. Like it's not even close. It's not even like, well, unless like it's just that's the Eagles losing would be huge for San Francisco. And they've
already wrapped up the division. So the Seahawks are not really a threat.
Right. They're just irrelevant now.
Yeah.
It's just, that's kind of a weird thing. If you're a Niner fan and you're like, yeah, okay, go Hawks, am I right? Like that's weird. That's weird. It's like when they needed the Cowboys to beat the Eagles the other night. Like my mom hates the Cowboys. Like it was a huge Niner fan through the heat of the rivalry, right? And the other night when the Cowboys played the Eagles, she's like, I hate this, but it's our Cowboys.
Now, I think most 49ers fans, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but will be absolutely fine rooting against the Seahawks. What I don't think is going to happen is like you're going to have 49ers fans calling themselves 12s or being like wearing 12s jerseys or anything like that.
Oh. Yeah. That would be funny though. If somebody just pulled up in full Seahawks regalia, they were like, let's go. Let's go get that 1 seed, baby. So the reason that matters is, Dallas lost today. They go to 10-4. Detroit also 10-4. If the Eagles lose and they go to 10-4, and we talked about this earlier with Dallas, but the Niners would be sitting at 11-3. They would be a full game up on Philly, Detroit, and Dallas, the 3 teams chasing them for the number 1 seed. And they would have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Philly and Dallas. So they would ostensibly be 2 games up with 3 games to go. on those two teams, which gives them a little bit of wiggle room where if they lose a game, it is not the end of the world.
And they would have the conference record tiebreaker against the Lions.
Yeah, they would have it against, especially if they lose to Baltimore.
Yeah. They're 9-1 in the NFC.
In the NFC.
I think we lost you there for a second, but yeah.
I said they're 9-1 in the NFC, so they would have the conference tiebreaker kind of regardless.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Rams in that 7 seed.
I'm not sure anybody would. Hey, Rams. Let's say everything shakes out the way it currently is. So Niners would have a bye. The 4-5 is Dallas at Tampa again, and then it is Minnesota at Detroit. And then Rams at Eagles. Are you confidently picking the Eagles in that round?
No.
I'm definitely not. I would want no smoke with the Rams.
How about the Eagles making Matt Patricia their defensive coordinator?
Insanity, dude.
I thought
very quietly just fired Sean Desai. Like, oh my God.
I thought that was a fake tweet when it happened or when I saw it.
Or I guess they demoted him. I guess.
Right. Always great when you're a conference power, just like demoting one of your coordinators midway through the season,
or in crunch time of the season. Yeah, doing that in November, okay. Don't look. December 17th. What? Oh my God! For Matt Patricia.
Right, for Matt Patricia.
He has the answers.
Right, that's your guy.
Damn, they are down bad, dude. And that they're like, oh, the Shaq Leonard. All right, man. Sure.
That will be a very interesting game on Monday night. Anyway, anything else from Niners Cardinals?
Nothing else from Niners Cardinals. Another just solid win.
Win.
Another final score that didn't indicate how one side of the game was.
Yeah, Niners offense I thought was excellent. I thought Brock was excellent. I thought the injury scares were certainly notable, but ultimately seems like things are okay. Defensive injuries could be a problem. Their tackling was absolutely a problem, and they were pretty sloppy on defense overall. But when your offense is this good, it might not matter. And that's sort of my big picture takeaway from the game.
Yep. Next week's going to be really interesting. Possible Super Bowl preview between the 49ers and Ravens, and I can't wait. We'll talk to you about that. We'll talk about that game more throughout this week. Shout out to everybody for watching on YouTube. We appreciate all of you. If you could hit that thumbs up before you get out of here, that would be awesome, and we would appreciate the heck out of it. Please subscribe while you're here as well if you have not already done so. Hit that notification bell so you are notified every time we go live. And we are here after every single 49ers game, and we're here a couple times during the week. So lock in with us, and please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well. Rate, review, do all those things. We would appreciate it very greatly. I think that's it. That's all I got.
Rock on. See you, everybody.
See you.